All right, the final part of this mini series is really my bread and butter and what's returned me a great deal of profit over the last decade, and that is plus EV or positive expected value sports betting. Now, we're not middling, we're not hedging, we're not arbing, we're simply uncovering wagers that are hopefully going to return us a profit over the long term. This is where we have a theoretical edge against the sportsbook, and hopefully we see that edge actually come into fruition. Now, there's a lot of stuff out there. Forecasting, modeling, originating, top down, bottom up. I find a lot of that stuff to be a little bit confusing, and quite honestly, it's over my head. So what I like to do is really simplify things, and I have a 4-step process that will hopefully help you in getting you started in your live journey of plus EV betting. Step 1 is identifying a theoretical edge. And what's great about the training that we've just done is that the foundations of middling and arbitrage can help you do exactly that, because all these middles and arbs, they actually have a soft side that's going to return you profit over time. So if you have 6 sports books open and 5 of them are sitting there at plus 5.5, and you find this 6th sports book with an outlying line sitting there at plus 7.5, I can't sit here and guarantee you that that wager is going to win, but with volume applied, it should return you a profit over time. Now, there's a whole bunch of different ways to identify theoretical edges that don't necessarily rely on your sports book, like the example that I just gave. And that's really been what I've focused on as a sports bettor. And there's a lot of different ways to do all of this, but there's 3 things that I like to look at. And ultimately, they're all outlying situations that are really hard for sports books to handicap. The first is going to be outlying team tendencies. And this is where a particular sports team does something that's a little bit different than what the rest of the league might do. The second is going to be league trends and tendencies that sports books haven't caught up to yet. A really good example of this was in the NFL, teams started to go for 2 down 14 late in football games when previously they would always kick the PAT. This was something that could be exploited. That was a really obvious league trend that almost every coach was participating in. And the third is going to be motivational outliers. So this is where a team is going to do something totally out of character based on the circumstances of that particular game. And I'll give you an example. There were 2 NHL teams playing against each other where one of them needed to win in regulation in order to have a chance to still make the playoffs. So they pulled their goalie with a few minutes left in the game when they were tied. And this was an opportunity that I knew could present itself in that game, and I was able to capitalize on it as a result. These edges can be tricky to find, but when you love and watch sports in real time and have your sports books open, believe it or not, they really start to jump out at you. Step 2 is to test our theory. Now that I've identified a theoretical edge, I don't want to deploy a whole bunch of money before I gain some confidence around, this particular situation that I'm going to be betting on. So I like to look at some historical data, but also the current season at the league, team, and depending on the strategy, even the player level. The tricky part here is outlying situations might not have a lot of relevant data, so we oftentimes have to build it ourselves. And the simplest way to do that is to start either paper trading or betting very small so that the money that I'm wagering doesn't impact my finances, so that I can track this wager over time, build up a sample size, and see if there's a positive ROI or not. While I'm doing that, I compile notes. So it might be on the coach, the player, the team, the situation, and I'll database those for each and every team so that when I go to wager on them the next time, I can look back on those notes to see if I can find any trends or tendencies that can profit me some money. Step 3 is where I begin to adjust my strategy. I've built up a little bit of a sample size, I've wagered it small, but how can I improve it? Do I have a positive ROI or not? Could the ROI be better? What simple adjustments can I make so that I can be more profitable? Are there certain teams or players that I need to avoid or other ones that I need to focus on going forward? Step 4 is to ramp and repeat. So I've identified a theoretical edge, I've built up a decent sample size, I've made necessary adjustments to create a positive ROI and dump any strategies that haven't necessarily worked. Now it's time to actually make a positive impact on my finances, so I want to ramp up my bankroll and really strike while the iron's hot for the strategy that I've developed that has this positive expected value. Now, the tricky thing about sports betting is that the rules change within the leagues, the analytics and trends change within the leagues, there's coaching changes, personnel changes, and of course, the sports books are adjusting their lines as well. So I have to continue to repeat this process and go through steps 1 through 4 as old strategies fall off and new strategies develop, but also for each and every season because of the changes that we experience in each and every league. This process has been hugely effective for me, and I've been doing it for such a long time now that I have tens of thousands of wagers and just hundreds of notes on different teams that I can fall back on and help me as I grow as a sports bettor. While that might seem complex, it's actually very simple, and the process really feeds itself over time. Because of that, I've been able to have double-digit edges as a sports bettor from my live betting, and it's just been an incredible journey. My goal with you and with anyone that I work with is to get you started on making more informed, responsible, and hopefully profitable betting decisions. I've hoped you enjoyed this mini-series. It's been a pleasure sharing my knowledge with you, and we'll see you soon.